o'clock. 6 o'clock, right there. Call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Saper,
Here.
Councilmember Schneider, Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Fitzgerald, Councilmember Alvarez,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Present.
Councilmember Stokes,
Here.
Councilmember Todd.
Here.
There we go. Perfect. This evening, Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Saper. Thank you. Next, items the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries. Next item is comments from the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak this evening, please step up to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Zach Clevenger at 1028 East 24th Avenue. Want to first thank you all for a great Snake Saturday parade. Thank you, Mayor, for the great weather. And it was a good parade, and thanks to our police and EMS and everything that was there. So another thing, I was going to call it in today on a Public Works issue to our wonderful Public Works Administrative Assistant. But since I was walking by, I thought I'd just drop it off today. I don't know if we can get somebody to look at the walk signals there at Iron and Armor. It seems like it's kind of frozen that when you push the button or whatever. So, you know, if we can check at that, you know. Other than that, man, thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Thank you. Further comments from the public? Seeing none. Okay, sorry, I'm behind here. The next item is a ceremonial matter, which is the Monarch Pledge Proclamation. Is Sarah here this evening? No. I believe this item came from Public Works as well, and so we are signing up to join the Monarch Pledge this year. And so I will update everyone further as we kind of decide our activities and how we're actually going to participate in that as well. But excited to get underway with that program. So that's it for that item. Number 7. Sorry, I switched it up tonight.
River Forest Park update, joint session with Parks and Recreation Board.
There we go. Then I think it looks like Kim's getting ready to set up name tags here. So we're going to swap up and have all of you that came join us up here. I don't know if we're going down. It doesn't look like enough space. I'm fine with everyone staying up here. We'll just stay up here.
All right, thank you.
I think it's mostly. It seemed like she called me. Here's.
Liz has got the name tag.
No, you'll just be down with the.
No.
Well, you know what?
I think-
Other than being up there.
Hello. Oh, they don't want to give me a chair. Oh, I'm getting you this. Oh, you're getting an extra strong one, huh? I'm doing good. Thank you.
All right. Oh, there we go.
As long as your red light's on, you can talk. You know, that's cool. Awesome. All right. Okay, thank you.
Welcome. You can go wherever you want. Oh, you got something? Okay. Oh, we'll get it. We'll get it. They get. All right, everyone have a packet. We ready up here? You ready? And Lance, you are ready?
Yes.
Where's Councilmember Smith? Did he move? He went to the restroom, I believe. Okay.
All right.
Your show, go ahead.
So we've been here a few times over the past year. Today we just want to provide an update since it's been a few months since we met last. We want to do this in about 10 or 15 minutes, so try to move through this fairly quickly. In terms of what we want to talk about today, just to provide an update on the overall process and schedule, touch base on just a few design adjustments or additions to the site, provided some updates on some of the engineering progress on the site, and then kind of wrap up with some play equipment updates that we'd like to share with everybody as well. So we're going to spend most of the time on this slide in terms of schedule, given it's a fairly complex piece of moving parts. And today we are kind of sharing that there are some updates to the schedule. I know when we kind of met in the past, we talked about the possibility of the schedule needing to be extended with some of the additional work that was going to be done with the erosion control on site, as well as some of the additional environmental permitting required for the work. So we want to kind of walk through some of the updates on that. So there's generally sort of four things that are impacting our schedule. First of those is the cultural resource survey. We did a desktop survey, and with that gets sent to the state's Historic Preservation Office. When they review that, they make a determination if there needs to be additional study on site. They basically requested an archaeological survey of the site, so that means some additional shovel tests as well as excavation trenches to see if they can find anything on site. Because the site is adjacent to levee, we have to go through approval process through the U.S. Army Corps, so we're currently waiting for their approval and anticipating that work to start in May or June. The kind of second impact to the schedule is the Threatened and Endangered Species Report made a recommendation that construction happen only during the winter months when nesting and migratory birds wouldn't be impacted. We typically see that with bat habitat and not wanting to cut down trees. We don't typically see that recommendation on sites like this, but they are basically kind of recommending that construction happen during the winter months so as not to disturb the migratory birds and potential bat habitat on the site. So the third kind of impact is, kind of ongoing throughout this process. We've been working through with the stream crossing, trying to kind of find the best solution for that. That has to go through basically an approval process through the U.S. Army Corps, as well as FEMA and the state's flood emergency office. So that's something we're kind of currently working on, and have explored various options for that to really find the best fit for this project over the past months. And then kind of the fourth and final item that's impacted schedule is the global stability analysis or additional geotechnical investigation. If you remember in a past meeting, it was discussed if we would address some of the erosion issues on the north side of the site, and basically the decision was made to kind of move forward with that work. We worked with some of the property owners on the north side of the site to gain access to their site, did some soil borings up there, and basically created a report that talks to the overall stability of that slope, which I'll talk about later, as well as some additional measures that should be taken for erosion and sediment control on the site. So we also kind of appreciate that the community is excited about this project, but with the federal funding, there are some strings attached with that. That's kind of what's triggered some of these additional environmental impacts. I think also what we're doing is we're being good stewards of the land and the nature of the site too as well. So just kind of want to say that. I know people will be disappointed, but ultimately this is, I think, the best thing for the project moving forward. So in terms of some of the kind of quick updates on site design, kind of working with the city in the review process, they identified the need to provide emergency vehicle turnaround at the end of East 26th Avenue that currently doesn't have a cul-de-sac or any means for an emergency vehicle to back out of that safely. So we're providing a little pull out there, which would have a gate to keep people from parking that, but would allow those emergency vehicles to turn around. Another thing that we've worked on at the request of the city is to do a lot consolidation. And I don't know if you can see very well in the drawing on the left. Basically, this property was platted out to be a subdivision with multiple residential lots. And it's sort of sat there in that kind of legal boundaries. So basically, we're getting rid of all those individual lots and creating a single lot that would contain the park parcel. So kind of touching on some of those engineering requirements again, basically with the U.S. Army Corps permit, which is a 404 permit to do the stream crossing across the stream to access the nature trail, we did these additional kind of due diligence and environmental investigation on the site. So we've completed the slopeability analysis, the threatened and endangered species report, and the waters of the U.S., which is also kind of referred to as a wetland delineation. So those have all been completed. We completed the phase 1 of the cultural resource. That's the desktop, and we're basically waiting for the Army Corps approval to do the phase 2 or the actual excavations on the site. Those are all sort of in service to that U.S. Army Corps 404 permit. And then in addition to that permit, we'll be doing the FEMA and SEMA as well as levee district review. So getting into a little bit of the detail on the slope stability. So the plan in the kind of upper right corner shows the site. That blue line is the stream. And basically that kind of east and west line were two sort of profiles that the geotechnical engineer looked at on that steeper slope. What they're looking for there is, is there any indication that that slope could just slide off in a sort of global failure? And the good news is they didn't think that is a possibility. So, relatively good news out of the global stability report. With that, they did identify some measures to be taken moving forward. That includes some stream bank stabilization on the north side of the creek. That's basically where the creek touches the base of that steeper slope. So I believe they're kind of wanting to stabilize that, so if erosion were to continue in the future, it wouldn't cause issues. We've kind of indicated as a point of reference to where that proposed stream crossing is. That's the orange circle. And along with these measures, we anticipate addressing some of the sort of slope stability or eroded gullies, immediately north of the play area, as well as between the play area and the stream crossing. And then we also anticipate trying to capture some of the runoff on the top of that slope, basically within the backyards of some of those residents, to keep some of that stormwater from just flowing down. So that's kind of the update on the slope stability and erosion control. I would mention too, with the work to be done with the stream bank, basically we want to combine the approval of that stream bank stabilization with the stream crossing. So basically that U.S. Army Corps 404 permit, and I know I'm throwing a lot of acronyms and numbers at you that you may not remember, but it's kind of the language we're using. The idea is we want to basically include the stabilization of that stream bank when we also get the approval with that stream crossing. So that's kind of also what's pushing that schedule out a little bit, is to combine both of those efforts into one approval. So.
All right, so I'll stop you briefly just to make sure no one has any questions so far. All right.
Cool. Just real quickly here, I mentioned that the wetland delineation is part of that environmental due diligence. That really hasn't impacted our schedule at all, and you can see we have a pretty limited area of potential wetlands on the site, so we don't anticipate that being an issue with the Army Corps in terms of how much we're going to disturb that with the proposed stream crossing. So that's kind of the more technical acronym part of the presentation. This is a little bit more of the pretty pictures and park design that is a little more interesting to talk about. So in terms of the playground design, I think this is probably the last plan that was shown with to the council and park board. And if you remember, we worked with a committee of folks from both the park board and council to identify some additional play elements, as well as really ensure we had all the seating capacity and things needed for the project. So, another update beyond those additional play equipment is, as we worked through the stream crossing grading a little bit more, it became a real challenge to bring all of the circulation through the playground. That's basically that sort of white path that goes between the two sort of peach areas of play equipment. So we had this kind of switchback of walks to get you down to the elevation of the playground, and then people would circulate through there and onto the stream crossing. As we worked through the different options of the stream crossing, it just became basically impossible to kind of get the grading to work to bring everybody through that play area and still access the stream. So we came up with, we feel like, is actually a better design overall. And so that's kind of shown in this new plan here. So basically, you can see that the play equipment is pretty much in the same location. We have a couple more pieces. Those are kind of small elements on the left and middle, or some of the spring elements that were added by the play committee. But basically, you can see we have kind of a single path that brings you down and around the south side of the playground. We have a stair access on the east side of the playground and then accessible access on the kind of west end or left end of the playground. So we still have, easy accessible access to the playground. But this pathway, allows us more flexibility in terms of that grading. It also works really well in terms of preserving all of the existing trees we want to around the playground. Those trees you see are what's existing out there already. And you can also maybe see, if you refer back to the old plan, this also is a lot less concrete as well as walls and stairs compared to the old design. So this next slide just zooms out a little bit more to show that new circulation path around the south side of the playground. Further to the south is a nature trail that has basically remained the same. The overall playground itself and seating capacity has remained the same. But we feel like this design maybe even blends better in with the natural surroundings there. It also is probably a little easier to access with the Kubota that Parks anticipates using to kind of drive that trail and maintain the park. So these are, sure.
Can you tell us what's in the brown?
We're thinking that would be probably native grasses with maybe a few perennials, but it would be a planted slope basically adjacent those stairs on either side. So, any other questions about playground design? In terms of the play equipment, if you guys remember, we selected a sort of set of play equipment that is made out of wood. And this is basically the equipment that's going to come in at River Forest. These are sort of progress photos of those assembled in their manufacturing area in England. They anticipate shipping that out in April, and that is anticipated to arrive in May. And we basically wanted to purchase that equipment in 2023 to lock in on that lower pricing. And so that will be delivered to the city's sort of storage yard. We'll provide a kind of safe and secure area for that equipment to sit until it can be installed, hopefully kind of later this year in December. So this is the large tower structure that has a slide on it and ladder. And then this is that cantilever swing as well as one of the small towers. One thing that may be a little deceiving about some of these pictures is, some of the wood columns will be buried within the grade as sort of footing. So right now they look a little artificially high. We're not going to expect the kids to jump 5 feet to get to the ladder before they get up. So
Man, that fall looks high.
yeah. So we thought these pictures were pretty exciting, and we wanted to share those along with the updates to the playground design. So in terms of next steps, we're on to the last slide here. So we're going to hopefully get that approval from the Army Corps, proceed with the cultural resource assessment in May and June. Over the next few months, we'll be working on the submittal for the 404 permit, as well as working with FEMA and SEMA and other permitting requirements. We're also working on an overall stormwater study for the site that needed to be revised based on some of the levee district comments. So we've basically wrapped that up and are working to kind of resubmit that with them. And then kind of our next charge will be to focus on some specific design alternatives for the stream bank restoration and that slope stabilization to include with the construction of the playground. So with that, that's kind of my part of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any more questions.
Any questions? 0 questions. There we go. We didn't even give you a mic. What is this? Ken Clay.
There were four different things. One included the threatened and endangered species, but also part of this is to address some of the erosion on the site as well. So
That's me. That's me.
I was just wondering, is that going to increase the cost?
maybe slightly based on pricing, but if we were going to bid it, in October or something like that, I wouldn't anticipate that much of a difference at all between that and December. So I think also by combining the erosion efforts with the package of the park itself, we should gain some efficiencies in there that we might have lost if we sort of split those out into two separate projects as well.
Yeah, I'm really worried about the water thing because I've just in my street down there, the water comes up there and the levee and different things. So water just kind of scares me, it being taken care of and so forth. But I do know that one little thing that I got in on at the park, Ball Diamond, they postponed it a little bit. And as the city knows and the park board knows and the school knows, it cost a lot more money when they postponed it. And they came back with cost engineering, which I didn't know what that was till I saw it on the schedule, but it was, you just take a bunch of stuff out you're gonna do. And so anyway, I just, it always scares me when you push something back 6 months. You don't buy anything now that you can buy 6 months for the same price.
Yeah.
That and worrying about where the water's going, that it's, because we've got a project going up on apartments, it looks like, up on, by North Oak over there, gonna dump into the levee, so we're gonna dump more into the levee. And, like I say, I just don't want us to drown. That's it.
Thank you. And I'll say, I'm not sure I've ever seen a project we've done yet go down in price the longer we wait. So I'm waiting on the day.
You know, we had to come back and
Yeah, oh, yeah.
get to school, I mean, and
Yes.
everybody had to kick in, and that was the first time I'd ever been in on anything being built, and scares me.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Further comments? Anything? Oh, anything from you? You got to hit the button. There you go.
Anything else from the Parks Board?
All right. Then with that, thank you, Lance. And I thank the Parks Board for coming this evening, as well as your participation in the project so far. Excited to get this done. Thank you. Thank you. All right, then we'll take a couple minutes for everyone to kind of readjust here, and then we'll get started back up in a few.
Well, I
All right. Step on down, Anthony. There we go. Now we're in order. Lisa. There she is. Okay. Boom. Number 8.
Levy Trail Study Update.
I'll have you-
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Sherwood with Community Development. As many of you know, we have awarded by the Mid-America Regional Council last year for $54,000 to develop a feasibility study regarding to a trail system in front of the levee as recommended by the Bike Master Plan. So we are working diligently with Mike Kluwer as our contracted consultant on this particular study. We have hosted 2 open houses. We're getting close to the end results of this feasibility study. We will have our last steering committee meeting in April. So tonight is just a pretty rough update on what we have been done so far and what the routes look like. I think it will be more important for you guys to see it, since some of you didn't have the opportunity to see the entire picture. So I have Matt Eblin and, Anthony DePriest with Mike Kluwer. They'll make the presentation here.
All right. Good evening.
Howdy.
Oopsie.
Podium's up. Oh, wait. Now I touched something. No, we're good. Okay. They had a freak out there. Reboot screen. When that was going into a reboot screen. I never liked that.
Looks like it's up there. Yep. Gotcha. Not everyone, my name is Anthony DePriest. I am a landscape architect with McClure Engineering. We are a local engineering firm off 17th and Swift. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is the North Kansas City Levee Trail Feasibility Study. So just a quick overview of the project. What we're looking at is we're going to investigate the feasibility of a mixed-use trail along the Missouri River. So this is we're not constructing anything. We're just looking at, is it possible to build it, and what it would take to get it built. So we're going to investigate the enhanced connectivity to the following items. We're looking at, connecting into the Heart of America Bridge, connecting along the riverfront levee, Paseo Industrial District, Harris Casino, North Kansas City Hospital, Oracle Campus, and the Missouri 210 Armor Road Corridor. As this project has developed, some of those objectives have changed and shifted along the way. So we're not fully looking at the hospital anymore or the Oracle Campus. So who is the project team? We're working with Mid-America Regional Council. We have one representative. We were originally working with Jonathan Feverston, but he has since left, so now we're working with Patrick Truoba. We're working with Shu Wood and Anthony Sands with North Kansas City. Myself and Matt Eblin with McClure, and then we're working with April Snay from Shocking Consulting. We are working with the steering committee. We have numerous representatives that are here tonight. We have representatives from the North Kansas City Levee District, as well as Levee District engineers, Bike Walk KC, the North Kansas City Police Department, the North Kansas City Fire Department, Harris Casino, the North Kansas City School District, Velo Garage, and the local biking community, as well as Amy Clark. And then we have our stakeholders. So for that, we're working with the hospital, the Business Council, Kansas City, Missouri, Ingredion, and the fire department. Each one of these groups plays different roles within the project. We have regular meetings. We've had 3 different ones with our steering committee. We're looking to get more targeted feedback from them. The stakeholders, we feel, are less involved throughout the entirety of the project, but we still want to be able to hear from them and make sure that they have a place to give their feedback to us, which has been very helpful throughout the project. Just to get a better idea of where this project is occurring, this map is from the 2020 Bicycle Master Plan. So this is looking at, or has identified a trail along the river from on the east side, or the right side of the screen, from Choteau Traffic Way. This one shows it going along the river down to I-35 where it crosses. This was identified in the 2020 Bicycle Master Plan, and it is what we have used for the basis of our project. So early on, what we started looking at was geographical items. We looked at the soil conditions in the area. We looked at the floodplain, as this is on the riverside of the levee. Obviously, flooding is going to be a major concern and one that we have spent a lot of time investigating. There are different channels that we were going to have to cross and figure out how are we going to get over those. As well as there is, working with the levee district, different requirements for how close we can be to the levee. And I'm going to get more into that here in a sec. We also looked at the people side of things. You know, where are we connecting this trail? We need to make sure that it's a cohesive system and not just a standalone trail. We want it to integrate well within the existing infrastructure. We looked at railroad crossings. Obviously, pedestrian safety is a major concern and one that we really want to focus on. We looked at activity centers. Where are people going? Make sure that this trail is successful, as well as on-site observations. As many people are aware, there is a sizable homeless community that lives along the river. So how are we working with them to make sure that this trail is successful for everyone? So here's a summary of constraints that have been placed on this project. We're working with the levee district, and one thing that they identified was that all activity is to occur at least 100 feet away from the toe of the levee. For those that aren't familiar, the toe is where the levee meets existing grade. So that is pointed out kind of in the center of the screen, and so we must stay 100 feet away from that. The primary objective of the levee district is obviously to prevent any flooding in North Kansas City. And so one of the things that they've identified is to make sure that we're far enough away from the levee to not have any impact on its primary goal. Additionally, there are 2 available crossing points that we can use to get over the levee and back into North Kansas City. One of them is along Bedford and Riverboat Drive, which I can show here in a sec. And the other one is just west of the Heart of America Bridge, Missouri Highway 9 connection. We also must meet no rise requirements. So anything that we build down here cannot contribute to flooding, as well as no new at-grade rail crossings. And that 100-foot levee toe offset, that little diagram in the top right kind of shows where the levee curves around near Harris Casino, and we do get pretty close there. So those are some of the items that we're looking into. So from that site analysis, we moved into scenario planning, where we just kind of throw out a bunch of different ideas, where we're looking at different alignments for trails. We presented this to that project team, where we narrowed it down to 5 different options. There's 3 for the west side, 2 for the east side. That top one looks at shifting, for the west connection, that looks at shifting where that existing access is over the levee to the east side of the Heart of America Bridge before tying into that shared use trail along Missouri Highway 9. The second option for the west connection kept the crossing over the levee where it was, and looked at tying into Harlem before coming back into North Kansas City. The third option extended the trail all the way down to the airport. For the east side, we looked at what if we stay on the river side of Harris Casino, or what if we went around the dry side. So from there, what we did was we presented these options to the public. We had our first public open house in early November. We wanted to ask the public what they thought of the different alignments, which ones that they preferred, as well as what did they want to see along the trail. Did they want signage? What kind of signage did they want to see? Did they want lighting, safety way stations, art, bike racks? Did they want water fountains, benches, those kinds of things? So from that feedback, the 2 alignments that emerged as favorites were keeping the trail along the Missouri River on the east side with a potential connection to Bedford Avenue, That Bedford Avenue was identified in the 2020 Bicycle Master Plan as a future bicycle trail. And this one would also connect into the shared use trail along Shoto Traffic Way. For the west connection, we looked at, or the favored option was moving where the levee accesses to the east and then tying directly into the Highway 9 Heart of America Bridge. So this is what the overall trail alignment would look like. And it's kind of hard to see in this diagram, but we do tie into those different shared use trails to try and create a cohesive trail network. So we took that and presented it once again. We had a second open house in early March. This one, we showed those different options. We showed what the trail could look like. With this one, we weren't having direct feedback. The whole goal of this open house was to just kind of present our ideas and listen and hear what the public had to say. So some of the trail metrics, it's about 3.5 miles of new trail. 3 of that would be new pavement, while the other half mile would be on top of Riverboat Drive on the east side. And we were predicting it to be a 10-foot wide trail. I'm going to let Matt come up and talk a little bit about some of the costs.
Thank you. Again, Matt Eblin from McClure. You're going to see the breakdown there between concrete and aggregate to span that 3.5 mile long trail along the river. As part of putting that together, a lot of times trails are either one of those two options. We spoke with the folks at the city of Parkville who have their trail out there in English Landing Park right off the river. We also spoke to the folks at the city of Riverside. And the folks in Parkville are like, hey, every so often when it rains, when the waters come up, it washes our trail away. So just keep that in mind, I think, for when the decision is being made in terms of like concrete does cost a lot more right now, but it's much more resilient to when floodwaters come up. I don't know if it says up there, somebody forgot to bring his glasses from the car, but long story short, based on the river gauge that's either at the ASP Bridge or the bridge on Broadway, 7 times in the last 15 years, water has gotten high enough to roughly where our trail would be. So again, something to keep in mind. But again, yeah, for sure, concrete has much higher cost, but much more resilient. So I'm trying not to show my bias, but I think I already have. So happy to take any questions later on.
All right, any questions we have up here? Councilmember Snyder.
Sorry. I do have a question. I know you said it was more resilient, the concrete, but do you find sometimes when we're looking at a situation like this that the soil gets washed out from underneath? Do you have more concrete work to come back in and do? And is that difficult given the location?
Some of that stuff is hard to predict, and all this is a study right now, but we did actually check and had one of our structural engineers in checking out how high the water got and said, okay, I said, listen, we could have 6-8 feet of water on top of this trail. Not very often, but it could happen. If water starts to swirl around there, that's really hard to predict. So we did find out that the velocities that would occur as water is flowing across the trail were not significant enough to move the trail to the sidewalk. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other? All right, do you have more than still going?
It was just kind of our looking forward, kind of the next steps of this project. We do have our last steering committee meeting in mid to late April, and then with the project wrapping up in early June. So that's just a sneak peek of what we're going to be doing coming forward. We are going to put together a final document that will have all this information in it, and then just some pretty pictures at the end. So,
always a good close. Further council member questions? Seeing none, thank you, and I thank everyone that's participated in the process so far.
thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Number 9, fiscal year 2022-2023 audit presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So tonight, before we submit the audit to the state by March 31st, we have our auditor with Reuben Brown, Caleb Lilly here to present on the audit. I just want to first just take a moment to thank some of my team members. Brad Miller, who is our accountant, has done a fantastic job. I forget to do this every year, but I just want to make sure I recognize his efforts and the rest of the finance team for helping to work towards another successful completion of the audit. But for right now, I'll hand it over to Caleb.
Is this the clicker? Yes. Got it. There we go. All right. My name's Caleb Lilly. I'm a partner with Reuben Brown, and I'm the audit partner responsible for providing an opinion on your financial statements. So I'm going to spend just a couple minutes walking you through what we are required to provide to you at the conclusion of our audit. When I say conclusion, we are at the finish line. The document is not ready to be finalized, but it will be in the next couple of days. We've got a few housekeeping items to clean up and get some representation letters and things like that. But within a few days, we'll have everything finalized. So the document that you were provided last week, minus maybe some cosmetic things, will basically be the numbers that will be presented and the footnotes that will be presented. So I'll walk you through what we're required to communicate at the end of our engagement. There is a management letter that I'll mention a couple comments about, and then I'll take any questions. And if you have something you want to ask in the middle of the presentation, please don't hesitate to interrupt. I'm happy to address those as we go as well. So, and I don't know, you guys can see these screens where you're sitting?
Yeah,
Okay,
we have, yeah.
Got it. Just making sure. So we were engaged to audit the financial statements of the city. We do that in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and the goal basically is to provide an opinion on your financial statements. And we do expect to issue an unmodified or clean opinion on those financial statements. So the term they use is unmodified. So that's the opinion we do expect to issue on those financial statements. And to, I guess, clarify just a little bit, your financial statements are included in what's referred to as an ACFR, so your annual comprehensive financial report. So your financial statements are embedded in that document. We do not provide an opinion on that entire document. We only provide an opinion on the financial statements and the footnotes themselves. We don't give an opinion on a lot of the other pieces that are attached to that, your transmittal letter, your MDA, your statistical section, things like that. That is not part of our opinion process. So a few things that we're required to communicate to you, and I'm sorry if I'm looking to the side a little bit. I was thinking there might be a screen in front of me, so I apologize if I keep looking to the side a little. I got most of this memorized, but not all. So we are required to point out to you that your accounting policies are included in Note 1 to your financial statements. We're required to let you know whether or not any of those accounting policies have been changed during the year. You did technically adopt GASB 96, which is your subscription-based information technology arrangements. Similar to what you adopted last year for leases, we're putting assets and liabilities on the books and grossing up your balance sheet. There was an impact that came over from the hospital related to that, but the city itself didn't have any material subscription assets or liabilities, so there was really no material change from the city's funds and the city's perspective other than the impact that the hospital drove in. So they did have some substantial items that they did adopt, so that does flow into your financial statements because of the relationship of them being a component unit. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you know what? Thank you. That's helpful. There were no transactions entered into during the year which lacked authoritative guidance or consensus, basically meaning that the proper support and information is there to support why you were incurring those transactions and or booking them in your financial information. No transactions occurred outside of the financial reporting period. That's a timing. You didn't book something that belonged to 24 that should have been in 23 and so on. So they were all recorded in the appropriate period. We're required to let you know if there's any significant accounting positions taken by the city that deviate from accounting practices that are standard or normal for a city. Happy to say there were no instances like that. And then if there are any significant or unusual transactions, which very rarely does anything fall in that category, we're required to let you know about those, but there were none. And again, I do want to point out, as you'll see on the right-hand side of this slide here, the hospital enterprise fund and then also the pension of the hospital are included in your document. Those are incorporated by reference to the auditor that provides an opinion on those financial statements, which I believe is Forvis for both of those. So we take that data and we incorporate it into your document because they are component units, so we're required to do so. sure these are flipping. There we go. So all financial statements contain accounting estimates. And as part of our audit process, we do look at the underlying information used to produce those accounting estimates to make sure that it seems appropriate in the circumstances. And then probably the most significant estimates in your financial statements relate to your lives used on your depreciable capital assets, the actuarial accrued amounts for the various pension liabilities for police and fire, the hospital, and loggers. All of those are a series of assumptions used, interest rates, investment returns, mortality rates, all those things are used to make those calculations. So we look at those underlying items as part of the process to help provide our opinion on whether or not those estimates are appropriate. The other item that we are required to point out are any disclosures that we feel might be more significant than others in this document. So we usually try to point out a couple that probably maybe are a little more prominent. So note 2 is your deposit investment risks. So that just discusses the various investments that you have, credit ratings, interest rate risk, things that might indicate possible risk within your investment portfolio. Note 7 relates to your lease receivables and revenue, and that's just basically related to the gaming receivables and the Harris. And then 9 is the retirement system. Note 9 is the retirement and pension footnote. So that's got your hospital pension, your police and fire pension, and your loggers pension all mixed in there. It's a pretty large footnote, but it's a lot of data about those liabilities and or assets and the positions they're in at the financial statement date.
Councilmember Smith.
Yep.
So on the last one,
Yeah.
These assumptions and estimates can drive so much of what the end result is and what we're looking at to drive then decisions. It says they're neutral, consistent, clear, great to hear, but are, in your opinion, are there best practices on these to use, and are we doing those best practices? Because, again, these drive so much of what is projected into the future.
Yeah, and I don't know the exact page of the footnote, but there is, for example, a disclosure in there that says, here's your current liability or asset position on a pension, and if it were to be if your investment return were to be 1% higher or 1% lower, this is how it would impact it.
Right.
So that gives you an idea of how much those can actually impact your financial results. I would tell you what I'm seeing is pretty consistent with what I see. We see Capers information, for example, and compare that to loggers. The assumptions used are fairly consistent. They might think they're getting a 6.75 return. You think you're getting a 7. I mean, that's fairly consistent. I would also say your police and fire is maybe, I don't know that I would say it's conservative, but it's lower than what you're seeing with loggers. I think there was a 6.5% return, for example, as opposed to 7 that loggers thinks that they're going to get. So that does drive the result of that estimate quite a bit. 0.5% does. But I wouldn't say that's out of bounds either. It's probably a little conservative, to use a lower expected rate of return. But all the assumptions that are in our mortality tables, inflation rates, all of those things are very consistent with other plans that we see in the region. Doesn't mean any of them are necessarily right, but they are consistent, I would say.
Is there a data set that's published that is kind of a go-by, or is it like best guess at this point? I mean, you can compare across what's been looked at.
Right. We generally try to look at what we see in the region and see if it looks out of bounds. I would not say that we go out to a published data set as auditors to go and dive into that at a deeper level. That's what actuaries do, and this is why you pay them to do that. Because they've got those data sets and that access. We don't pay to get access to that as a firm. But that is where they get their data from, and that's what they're bringing to you when they're providing you with those assumptions to consider every so often, and you do reconsider those from time to time. There have been changes over the years as they provide you with suggestions, and I would say for the most part, what I've seen, they've been in line with what I see other communities receiving.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. I haven't had that one before. I like it.
My background's in interest rate risk for bankers.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, now it makes more sense.
And we had a pretty jarring loggers discussion with, I think it was one of the pension plans where the rates have gone up so high and the investment returns tapered off, and so you see those values jump around a lot.
Well, they can move substantially.
And it's hard to pin that down, and then, again, driving decisions off of that is tough spot to be in.
It's tough because you can go to Missouri and Kansas and look at their two pension plans, Capers and Mosers or loggers, and they might be different by 0.5%. But when you're talking billions of dollars, it makes a big swing in the number really fast. So it can be challenging. Let's see, did I move to the, get ready to, there we go. As part of the process of performing our financial statement audit, we oftentimes may come along items that maybe aren't presented correctly, or we find an error. We do propose adjustments to correct those. And then in addition to that, there are times where we find maybe what I would call smaller or less material errors, or maybe we have an estimate, you have an estimate, they're slightly different, but it's enough that we want to mention it, so we call those past or uncorrected errors. So we're required to bring both of those to your attention, ones that we corrected or posted, or ones that we think might be there, but we decided not to post it or passed on it. So a summary of the past items is listed here on this next page. It's really just 2 items, and oh boy, that's small print. I'm going to have to grab my glasses for that one. So you hold some, the ARPA funds that you received those in advance, so you really haven't earned the right to the revenue because you haven't spent them yet, but they were recorded in revenue a couple years ago, mistakenly. Not a huge number, so it's sitting inside your fund balance, so we're just proposing an entry that would theoretically, if we posted it, pull it out of fund balance and say it's a liability because theoretically, as of today, you owe it back.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah.
On that one, this is one that I've consistently either misunderstood or this was one where I believe we used those ARPA funds to replace lost revenue, and that was a permitted use.
Correct.
I believe. So they're still inappropriate to be in
I
recognized
don't
as
believe
revenue.
they've all been used yet. This is the remaining piece that hasn't been allocated, is my understanding, unless I've been given incorrect information,
No,
which
like,
is possible.
My
That's why we have
understanding
these drafts,
was
right?
quote,
Nick
using
looks
the
like he might have an
funds.
update on how we're.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of a weird one. I don't disagree with the way that we're posting it. So what we've reported to we do a federal report every year. We did claim it as lost revenue, and because that's what we were guided on. That's what, under $10 million, that was the way we were kind of suggested to go with. However, what we have done is we do have a separate fund for it, and we are using it for other things. So, last year we had the retention incentive that we included in there. And we've made that clear in the federal reports as well, as saying, like, yes, we are counting this as lost revenue, but if you ever come back and say something different, because these rules change every year, we want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and reporting it. Yes, we did also use it for the retention credit. I believe we also budgeted this year for a basketball court in the park. So I think this covers our bases, just recording it this way. But yeah, it's been a weird reporting thing, but we've tried to be as conservative as possible in doing that.
Right. So my understanding was that the quote use of the funds was cover lost revenue, but like we did that and set it aside in an earmarked account so we could use it per the intent of ARPA funding being sent out to. But this sounds like we should change the way that was accounted for in a certain.
Yeah, so what this entry is proposing is moving it from fund balance to basically like a deferred revenue. You haven't earned the right to it yet, but let me sit down with Nick again and look through the original detail. I wasn't involved 3 years ago, so it doesn't hurt to have a fresh set of eyes on it, and I can check with the partner that did it a couple years ago, just make sure that we've got all the facts and circumstances, because we actually could be wrong. We've made mistakes before. I won't say we never have. Again, it's a past adjustment. It's not recorded in your books to make a change. It's just something we're proposing and saying, hey, let's pass. But let me double check that. I'd be happy to do that. It's quick and easy. I can grab the data from Nick, and we could possibly remove it if we need to.
Thanks.
Yeah. The other item on there relates to monies you hold in an agency capacity, but you've got them sitting in your fund balance. They're technically not your money, so you're not supposed to run them through your fund balance. You're supposed to just hold them as an asset and liability. So it's just recategorizing it, but it's not material. So material enough, I have to tell you it exists, but not enough to post it. But that's what that is for the $196,000. And then a list of the. The adjusting entries that we had proposed, those would be here in the back of this document. There's a handful of them now. Not all of these are us saying these are errors. Some of these are timing. We start the audit in December. He's still closing out some capital assets. He gives us some entries. So if you see any of them that have a CJE in there, that's our lingo for client journal entry. So Nick's giving me that, and we're posting it, but we got to get it in our trial balance, so we post it, so it prints it out with the list. So if it doesn't say CJE, that's something that we proposed or we presented to be posted. So this is just a list of them. I didn't plan to go through them, but if one caught your eye and you wanted to walk through it, I'm happy to walk through those entries if you need. But wanted to let you know they're in the back of the document along with our representation letter, which we'll get to in a second. Where was I? So that's the past entries. There we go. So so at the conclusion of all this, we're required to let you know if we had any modifications to our report letter that would need to be, you would need to be alerted to. The only modification to our report letter is an emphasis of matter paragraph, and all that's doing is explaining that we implemented GASB 96. So it doesn't modify our opinion, it's just a modification of the report to explain something unique in the document so that it calls it out. So anytime you have a new standard that's implemented, that's always required to be in that letter. So that's all that is. So nothing of alarm there necessarily. We're required to let you know if we consult with somebody outside of our engagement team, like, so maybe we need to hire our own actuary because we don't like what your actuary presented. That sort of thing happens occasionally, but in this case, we didn't hire any outside consultants to look at anything specific. If we have significant difficulties working with management or getting information, we're required to report that to you. We didn't have any difficulties. If we disagree with management on how something should be tracked or handled, we're required to let you know what that disagreement was and how it was resolved. We have none. And then management's supposed to tell us if they use an outside accountant to do something for them, just so we make sure that we're on the same page with facts and circumstances, because they could get a different result if they had different information than we did. So it's just more of a syncing up process. They have not been using outside accounting firms, so nothing there. And then, like I mentioned, there's a management representation letter in the back, and that's basically them representing to us that they were giving us accurate information, timely information. They didn't withhold information from us, and it's about 45 or 50 items there, but you can read through them and you can kind of see what they represent to us. That would conclude my remarks related to the completion of the audit. We do have a few management letter comments. Is it just past this if I keep scrolling, or is it in a different document? You know. I can try flipping and see. Nope, not on that. Is it in a different? Okay, I didn't know if it was just attached on the screen separately or not.
Oh, I see.
There it is. Got it. I may not, well, while he's trying to get on the screen, if you, there's a yellow page just past the draft document, the little tab, the same management letter on the heading of it, so it'd be just before tab 10, basically, the couple pages before tab 10 on your hard copy.
Yeah, Councilmember Snyder.
Yeah.
While they're looking for it, I do have a question about
Sure.
it for when they pull it up.
Yeah.
This isn't anything new to us. This is something we see every year with the
Correct.
audit, as far as needing more oversight. But given the size of our staff, do you see other cities that are at this size where the oversight piece is dealt with in some sort of creative way where we don't get those recommendations? Or is this just kind of comes par with the course of having a city this size?
Yes and no. A bad answer, but yes and no. So we absolutely see cities or even other organizations, manufacturers, contractors that have small staffs that's a little more challenging. Are there ways to be creative? Absolutely. If you feel like you have individuals that you can teach certain processes, or you feel comfortable that they can look at something and understand it, or again, train them to understand it, a bank rec, right? You maybe have done that on your own in your own checkbook, right? But could somebody prepare it in the accounting group, and somebody, like, I'll make this up, the mayor volunteer, hey, I'll look at the bank rec every month. But those kinds of things are creative ways to do that. It's probably something that takes 15 minutes to sit down with the team and walk through it, but you got to have the person that's got the availability, the willingness, the skills. So yes, there are creative ways to do that. Sorry, Mayor. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I delegated to Anthony Sands over there. So
But we do see that. That is a fair assessment. There are times that those kinds of things, again, you want to go through a process of understanding what might be, I don't want to say simple, but maybe wouldn't be a large task to assign to somebody, that they could give some oversight and review some things. Absolutely, you can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, did you want to go through this then real quick?
Yep. So I don't think that any of these will, if you've
Do we
been
have
here
a-
in years past, I think these will probably look fairly familiar to you. Oops,
Page
is it
here.
on the screen? Yep, there we go, sorry. So these first couple pages are the technical lingo about what we're doing and why we're issuing it, but when you get to the heart of it back here, these are the findings here themselves. So the first finding it relates to the segregation of duties, what you were just referring to. And primarily your two areas of concern are almost always cash cycle, right? Disbursement cycle, receipt cycle, money moving in and out, it's all affecting your accounts, access to cash, wiring, ACHs. I mean, seems like every week in the news there's some organization that wired money to somebody in Russia or something like that, and it's unfortunate, but it's all too common, and it's generally a very simple infiltration into getting the access to the information. And it's many times that I've had to have that presentation with boards and say that everybody says, well, it won't happen here, but it happens everywhere. And from very large, sophisticated organizations, it gets through. So it happens. And so that segregation can be important. Again, challenging with a small staff sometimes, but what I've offered up to Nick is thinking about going forward, let's find an opportunity to sit down and really look at high priority, like where would you spend your time and effort if you could knock a few things off the list to make it better, maybe moderate priority, and maybe you can't do them all, but you can get as many of them as you can, then maybe lower priority that, hey, that's our wish list. If we can get to those, great, but if we don't have the resources or the manpower, maybe we can't. But there are probably some ways that you could do some of the things you're referring to if you want to think creatively as a group. So I've told Nick I'd be happy to group up this summer with whomever and talk through maybe some of those ways to do that. And so I would absolutely do that. But that's what that refers to, the first item there, the first finding. The second one might be a little harder to avoid, and it's simply because a handful of years ago, the standard setter said basically if as an auditor I'm preparing the financial statements, then by default, if so to speak, that the accounting team on the other side of the table is assumed to not have the ability to do it themselves at a high level. Now, that's not always the case, but it's on us to kind of help assess whether or not that is the case. And so an indication of that, for example, would be a handful of journal entries, right? We've made some adjustments to the entries, so maybe the close, a few things were missed, kind of gives an indication that they can't give a complete, full, accurate set of GAAP financial statements without a little help. Again, not uncommon. This is a pretty common comment we make to a lot of our clients, and a lot of accounting firms do. It's just that it's really hard to have all the GAAP knowledge you need when there's, in your case, well over 100 standards that are applicable to the city that they have to consider when they're preparing financial statements. So we do this every day, so we're pretty familiar with them. But so it's a little tougher for individuals to be able to do that on top of their day jobs. So that's what that particular comment relates to. And then the last one there is really just that. When we do some of our testing, we always look for missing accruals. So that's specific to an accrual that we found that should have been made that was pretty substantial. I think it was just a little north of $1 million. Again, just some of those payments or those invoices come in late. They come in sometimes December, January, especially some of the larger ones on large contracts or projects. So a lot of times management teams will look so far out and just kind of, okay, we've looked for 60 days, didn't find anything, and they'll stop, and sometimes something comes in after that window. My guess is that's what happened in this case, but it got caught in our process because we're out here in January and February, so we've got a longer window to look. So sometimes we catch some of those things. So that's what that relates to, is just kind of doing a wrap around at the end of the year and picking up all those receivables and payables and things. So that's the short presentation on those. If there's other questions on any of them or need more detail, happy to try to help.
Councilman Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
These might be almost comments more so than questions, but first off, thank you for getting through the audit and helping us get it done before the end of March. I'll always appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
A couple areas of comment, just wanted to maybe address. Just first, the number of journal entries, I think north of 20 posted and a couple pages.
Mm-hmm.
I know a decent number of those are client entries related to timing, but there are still some, trying to remember what they were now, but
Sure.
you recorded the rolling forward fund balances and that type of thing.
Correct.
I wouldn't mind seeing, internally if we might be able to implement some checks or whatnot to catch those before it goes out the door. And then
Right.
just with a lot of these client entries are related to fixed asset additions. My understanding is we do a lot of that process manually. In your opinion, would there be maybe like a decent software or something we could look at to help expedite that process?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Softwares exist that can track that information, and a lot of private organizations use them, and other governments use them. I will tell you that any software is only good as its consistently applied use. And what I mean by that is if you're going to wait till September 30th and try to catch up on a whole year's worth of, be like doing bank recs. If you wait till the end of the year to try to do 12 months of bank recs, it's going to take you a while. If you're trying to wait till the end of the year to say, okay, how many fixed assets do we have, and then trying to reconcile that, get it into a software, it's still going to take some time. Again, I'm not saying that's what they do. I'm just saying just because you get a software, it doesn't mean it's going to fix your problem. It's more about getting an understanding of, is there a consistently applied process every month or every quarter that can maybe catch you up throughout the year so that when you get to the end of the year, it doesn't take you 3 months to get through it. It takes you 30 days or 45 days, something like that. Again, I don't know all the processes here inside and out and what happens monthly or quarterly, but that could be a mechanism of just being a little more consistent with how often you do go down that path, if that makes sense.
Understood. Thank you. Yeah, and I guess, Nick and Kim and everybody, if that would be something that'd be helpful, I would at least be in favor of it. Won't speak for everybody else, but, and then just on the significant deficiencies, I know the reporting one's probably unavoidable, but I guess almost echoing the earlier comments, I'd be in favor of seeing what we can do to address policies to eliminate that going forward.
Yeah, and again, like I told Nick, we're happy to help in whatever capacity we can to help kind of really maybe narrow down where you can find a few things you can clean up, and maybe it's an overtime process. Can you chisel away at it over a couple years and make it better every year?
Well, thank you, and also thanks to Nick and Brad. I know this is a lot of extra work on top of the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah. So for the first couple findings, maybe we have an accounting subject matter expert on the council that could help review some of that stuff. Connor?
I don't know how far I'd put it, but I'd be happy to help if I could.
Other than that, thank you for the financial audit, very thorough. This may not apply to you, but it's something that when you mentioned the wire situation, brought back some memories of other sorts of audits that go along with a financial audit, such as testing weaknesses like phishing, or I forget what the term is, where you call in and try to get sensitive information from somebody, finding the weak points.
Right.
And is that
penetration
something,
testing? Things
yes,
like that,
thank you, penetration testing. Is that something that's offered by your group?
We do it.
Okay, I'd love to see it, whether it's has to go through a separate RFQ or whatever. Some penetration testing would be really good right now, because ransomware is on the rise, especially with cryptocurrencies, and I don't want to see us get locked down and out of our systems because somebody clicked the wrong link or spoke to the wrong person on the phone.
I will tell you that they're pretty smart, because they know the organizations that lack funding or maybe have older systems, all the above, cities, counties, school districts, universities are high targets, because they have large budgets, they have access to large dollars. Many of them are doing sizable construction or other projects, so there's big wires and checks going out, so it's easy for them to slip something in and grab 50 grand, 100 grand. I wish I could tell you it hasn't happened to me. I probably have 5 to 6 clients a year just in our office in Kansas City. It's not counting our whole firm. Just in Kansas City market, we have 5 to 6 clients a year that call us and say, we just got hacked.
Yep.
And I've only got 30 clients on my list, and I've had 4 in the last 5 years. So it seems like it's a matter of time before which one's calling me next, because it's so pervasive. And 80% of the time, 90% of the time, it's literally an email with a link.
Yep. It's not usually an IT issue. It's more a personnel and a training situation. And this isn't to vilify somebody or catch somebody. It
can be an IT issue.
Oh, sure.
Because sometimes they're getting in and mimicking an email conversation, and they've already gotten in the system. They're just sitting waiting for an opportunity to see something where they can jump in the conversation. So it's kind of usually both.
Yep.
because they're usually imitating somebody you know inside the organization or at one of your like a contractor. And they're really good about when they try to hack us literally daily. I just got an email 3 weeks ago that said it was from our managing partner and asking me to go buy something. I'm like, well, okay, I know he would never do that. So, you'd be surprised. And many times it's asking for wire information to be changed or routing information. Hey, we changed banks, blah, blah, blah. This is Jimmy over at such and such. And okay, great. And they switch it and off it goes. Happens way too often. And I've yet to see one under 500 grand of the ones I've had happen to my clients. Most of them are well north of that.
So I'd love to see some penetration testing done.
Yeah, they can, our firm does it, and lots of firms do it, but our firm does it, and they can do many different things. They can come in and do an assessment of your firewalls, your security protocols, your backups, all those sorts of things, but then they can also test it too. But many firms can do that, but yeah, we absolutely do it.
Further council member questions? Seeing none, thank you, appreciate the work you do, and I look forward to the final report here.
Thank you for having me
Thank you.
tonight, and if something comes up, somebody forgot to ask, Nick's got my contact info, please reach out. I welcome those questions. I'd rather answer them than somebody go unanswered, and I find out next year that somebody wished they'd asked me something, so, or had something relevant that I needed to consider.
Next item.
Item 10, community and business survey questions.
Evening, Mayor. Evening, Mayor and Council. I did put a printed version of this at your desk. I just find that sometimes the paper version is a little bit easier. So we did submit the changes that we discussed at the last City Council meeting to ETC. They have gone through and designed it. They did address the questions from the EIC. It is the last question on both of the surveys. They restructured the question to make it a 5-point question. So I'm happy to walk through each of these surveys, or I can cliff note it on, we did make the edits. We made the cuts of the questions that were requested so that we could get these surveys down to the size that ETC suggested. If this is kind of here to see what further questions, edits, changes you would like to see. If not, I would appreciate a motion, or I can bring it back for more of a formal motion at a future meeting.
Two questions, probably the first one. So no other edits were made, correct, in what we said at the last meeting?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. And with that, I sent Mike an email related to the staff survey as well. Can we get those questions, I guess, at the next meeting? Because I know you sent out, it was attached, I think it was the results from our previous one, but I don't think, unless they're the exact same questions again.
Yeah, we can bring forward this and the employee survey forward, and I can even have a timeline for the April, I believe it's the April 3rd meeting, because it's moved.
I mean, and I'm fine with moving community and business survey ahead if everyone's good. I mean, I think those changes are pretty clear last time, but if we wanted to bring the employee survey back up, yeah, that way we can get these moving down the road and out the door.
Yeah, if you need a motion, I move to approve.
There we go.
Second.
Further council member comments?
All in favor?
Seeing none, all in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. With that, next item is the consent agenda. Councilmember Smith.
Is it too late to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No, I usually allow at the beginning.
This is,
agenda, that's
okay.
fine.
I'd like to pull 12, please.
12 will be the first item on the regular items. Is there a motion to approve the amended consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. Item 12.
Reappointment of Glenda Jacobson to the North Kansas City Hospital Board of Trustees.
Councilmember Smith.
Okay. So I want to make this clear. This has nothing to do with Glenda. This has nothing to do with her service on the Parks Board, or on the Hospital Board. But I have gone through the application submitted, and a number of items are skipped, including the resume attachment, And then information about qualifications, lifelong resident, served on the board for 16 years, advocate for the city. These are all good things. But I understand from previous appointments to the hospital board that they have some sort of specific skills and qualifications that they're looking for to round out the board to help guide the hospital. And I was hoping to see something in those realms, accounting, IT, finance, something that they, or legal background. I'm just not seeing much in the application to go on. And then further, we've gone back and forth about term limits. I'm not advocating for term limits, but I also don't want to see appointments to these sorts of boards just become lifetime appointments de facto. And as people get more and more tenured, it seems like these applications come in less filled out. So I would like to see more information come back and maybe not allow skipping of resumes or something along those lines for these applications. But given that, I don't know Glenda very well. I've met her once at a meeting, but without any information, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Thank you. I would ask council to approve it tonight. Had other board members say good things about Linda. I do think it's important on any board to consider stability and institutional knowledge are huge. I mean, this is a candidate that's now been appointed, if this one goes through, I think by 4 mayors, which might go counter to your length point, but someone that 4 different mayors have looked at and 4 different mayors have said this person's qualified to serve in this capacity. I know she's an active volunteer in the community. Snake Saturday, previous to Centennial Committee, and if you look back over all the minutes and agendas, you can find her in about 10,000 other places as well. Councilmember Todd.
Yes, I am on board to approve. However, I will say I think this is a great opportunity to update our process, and I'm sure that there is a way to make some of these required fields in the application online so that in the future someone must upload a resume or must answer all of the questions if that's something that we're really looking for. So I would say it's an opportunity to improve our process.
Thank you. Further comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And you got the one abstain, right? Okay. So you get- Next item, please.
Number 16, ordinance approving 11th Amendment to Employment Agreement with City Councilor. Bill number 7835, ordinance number 9632.
You don't want to present on your own? Well, I'll be brief. No, I'm kidding, no. Just anything from council. Is there a motion to approve? First reading, I'm looking for a first reading.
First reading.
First reading,
There, we got a bunch of first readings.
Second.
Write one down.
Okay.
You had Stokes, you had Smith, you had, yeah.
I'll go
I
with
also
the
heard
second.
Smith on a second.
Second.
So it'd take both sides. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Whoops, I gotta put these on. An ordinance approving and adopting the 11th Amendment to Employment Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, and Thomas E. Barzee, Jr., City Councilor.
I move that bill number 7835 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9632.
Second.
Better give council one more chance. Nope, seeing none. Call the roll.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes. Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and adopting the 11th Amendment to Employment Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri, and Thomas E. Barzee, Jr., City Councilor. Item 17, ordinance approving an agreement for financial advisory services with Columbia Capital Management, LLC. Bill number 7833, ordinance number 9630.
Who's got it? Who's got it?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So tonight, we are recommending Columbia Capital Management to serve as the municipal financial advisor for the city. We had an RFQ process that included a committee of 2 council members, Councilmember Fitzgerald and Councilmember Schneider, along with a city administrator, deputy city administrator, and myself. We sent this out to a number of groups that we knew provided this service. We got 2 strong responses from Columbia Capital and Baker Tilly, and we decided to bring them both in for an in-person interview. After that, just looking at their bonding and debt strategies, looking at their local team, other advisory services that we've not necessarily taken advantage of in the past, we determined that Columbia Capital would be the best fit, and so we're recommending bringing them on board. We have Jeff White, who is with the company, who would be part of the team that would be serving the city. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know Jeff is as well.
There we go. Are there any questions?
First reading?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance adopting and approving an agreement for financial advisory services between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Columbia Capital Management, LLC.
I move that bill number 7833 be placed on second and final reading. We okay, Tom?
Was there,
And passes.
was that a,
Ordinance number 9630.
Second.
call the roll, please.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving an agreement for financial advisory services between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Columbia Capital Management, LLC.
Please. Let's just say that with the mic on. Rolling stuff now.
An ordinance engaging Matthew Webster for financial consulting services for the city and authorizing the city to execute an agreement. Bill number 7834, ordinance number 9631.
I was gonna say, you got me a little nervous. You're about to lose the rest of your paperwork off these. You might want to tell Tom to move over a little.
Need a bigger table.
Okay, it's all. Is this Tom's item? Whose item is this? Who's gonna take this one?
Briefly,
Hold on. Someone put that timer back up. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, as you know, Mr. Webster has served as the city's financial advisor for many years. He and Jack Holland for more than 30 years, but with a large number of different firms. As of December 1 of this past year, Mr. Webster was no longer with Stiefel and Company, who's, as you know from the one you just passed, theirs expired, their contract expired last week. Mr. Webster is not with anyone. However, there are a number of ongoing matters that Mr. Webster needs to help us with and needs to provide some support to a couple of our outside law firms that are assisting the city on a couple of different matters. And hence, we should have a contract with him to be able to move forward. But as you'll notice, I think very carefully, it's for existing items and to be able to provide some assistance in taking care of a few problems that exist as well that need to be addressed and he's familiar with. If you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But they will be used on an as-needed basis. And remember, he's serving as a financial consultant. Let me tell you, he's not with a firm right now, and as a result, he's not with a firm that allows him to be a municipal advisor. And I tried to explain that as much as I could in my memo, but he cannot do some of the things that certainly he had done for the city in the past, that's for sure. But he also has a huge amount of information that we got, records that we got from Stiefel and Company, because they were their records, but we now have them. Mr. Webster knows how to access those so that we can use those records. And that's just one of the things that needs to be done. There's some other issues that are ongoing that if we need a discussion on those, my advice would be those need to be in an executive session.
Ready? You on?
Mr. Mayor.
As well, okay, I saw three here. I think Councilmember Fitzgerald, we'll go you, Saul Schneider, and then Smith here.
I believe I understand the intent of this item. I do have some concerns with it potentially being overly broad. With the immediately prior item, we just approved a new, in my opinion, from sitting on the subcommittee, interviewing them, qualified advisor who can provide many, or if not almost all the same services we were receiving from Matt Webster. In my view, it would make sense to transition as much of that advising capacity to Columbia so they have a holistic view when advising us. So I don't know if we may, I do entirely understand the legal aspect of this going forward, where we may need consultation on ongoing litigation, but outside of that, I'm struggling to see some of the benefit here.
Let me respond. I'll take the blame for this or whatever, the way it's structured. I tried to make it as broad as I could for the benefit of the city to be used when necessary to help the city. That's all, okay? And if someone doesn't have the information or the knowledge that they need, you know, that could be a problem in and of itself. And so the intent was simply not to go running off and running to Mr. Webster all the time, but rather to be able to use him as the occasion arose, if in fact it even arises. It may not arise. That's a fact. I don't agree. I don't disagree with that. But if it does arise, I don't want to be running back here and say we need to amend the contract with Mr. Webster to allow him to do X. And you're just going to, the way it looks, it seems to me, it's a matter of trusting staff to be able to know when and when not to call upon his services.
But I guess now reading the contract again, E does say to provide such other financial consulting services that are mutually agreed upon in writing by the city and approved by action of the city council. I mean, so you would have to come to us every time as is anyways, potentially, right? Is that how I'm reading that?
Exactly. If we're going to do something beyond what the items I think you know we need to work on right now and where he will be needed, absolutely. That was the intent, at least of me inserting that into the agreement.
Okay, as I said, I'll go Councilmember Schneider and Councilmember Smith here.
Connor said exactly what I was thinking, only in a more concise way. So I had the exact same concerns, is that we did just hire another financial advising company to come in and do a lot of these things, and I think the scope just needed to be pared back for what we need with Matt Webster.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
I had the same concern, and the other part that I noticed is going through the compensation portion of the agreement. The piece from Matt, his hourly is higher, significantly higher than the partner, like the managing partners of the firm we just hired. And I don't know if that's just a carryover from his prior contract or if that's his going rate. I know the dais isn't, especially when the other party's not even here, a time really to negotiate, but it just seems odd that that is like so much higher than what we're paying our other primary advisors.
I did not negotiate the fee whatsoever, and I did no investigation of it whatsoever, to be candid with you. None.
So we'll see if there's some recommendations or amendments here, but I would recommend council ultimately try to approve a contract even if it's with amendments this evening, due to some upcoming work we do need before next meeting. Unless we want to, I hate to say it, I know she said it, special session, unless we want to do that. But there might be some things we can resolve tonight and possibly get a contract approved. If there are any suggestions or recommendations on that front, or we can approve it as is.
I had a couple potential suggestions, although I maybe didn't plan for this appropriately for, I have a printout copy in front of me, but as far as, getting on the same page for what I'm talking about, or could we pull it up on here? Would that be feasible? The agreement itself.
It's item 18. Item 18. They want to pull it up on the screen, and it's item 18. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, if you just go to, it's item 18.
You want everyone to look at the same? I think I want everyone to get on the same page, yeah. Did we, you know what, if you want everyone, is everyone looking at does everyone have the contract, or do I need to print one for
There
anybody?
it is, right there.
I can go.
Oh, if everybody has a contract, I can just kind of narrate what I'm looking at here.
Got it. Ward
Okay.
4. That's Ward 4 as well. Clark, Stokes. You guys have a copy of the contract, or do you want me to print one? Are we good? Okay, just want to make sure everyone's on the same page. As he tries to go here.
So on the agreement itself, section 1, it lists, I believe, 6 areas where consultation could be provided, A through F.
So we're looking at scope of services.
Yes, yeah, the scope of services there. And there may be a valid reason to keep some of these, but my concern is just for, intent to transition over to Columbia and get that holistic view of our finances. Essentially, I question if we would need items A, B, and C, given that I believe the primary intent of this would be related to litigation matters, item F, and then E would give us a fallback for, other items as approved by the city and the council.
Go ahead, please.
We do need, some of this is intended to be a bridge, to bridge us from our current understanding of how specifically B to our new financial advisor. So we would be very prudent in our use. We definitely understand the city council, and it's our desire as well to move on to our new financial advisor partnership. However, some of the challenges, without a bridge, we would spend an extreme amount of money bringing somebody up from cold transition to a warm transition, if that makes sense. A 2-hour session to help bridge over where some of these financial structures are into the new system. I mean, we can do it the other way as well. However, it would take a lot more time.
Understood. Yeah, I guess I was viewing getting the new team up to speed differently than providing support for ongoing matters.
I mean, and again, sorry if it's not clarified in here. Our intent would be to transition as quickly as possible, literally as quickly as we possibly can to our new financial advising team. It would be a matter of a cold start versus a warmer transition.
So the financial analysis would be the new firm. Well, I saw you hit the button.
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith.
I've got nothing to recommend here. If we needed to approve as quickly as possible because of ongoing matters, I'll move for a first reading.
Councilmember Todd.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what you were saying, because what I heard you say was that if we kept in B, that might cover that transition, but we may not need A or C.
Some of it is the One North financial transactions.
Okay.
So it would be A and B, C somewhat to that point as well. But some of them are specifically how those financials flow through the cities and are reimbursed through TIF payments and bond schedules.
So we would really need all of those to be able to transition.
With the understanding of we want to be as prudent and as quick as possible going from 1 to 2. That is our
Gotcha.
desire as well.
But-
at the staff
Then I
level.
second.
To kind of Connor's point, I would hope that Columbia Capital is able to read financial statements and Chapter 100 documents and Chapter 35, or we screwed something up in the last item, and be able to pick it up, because these are fairly standard. I mean, we've looked at hundreds of these across the state. They're not that dramatically different, right? I mean, a Chapter 100 plan is a Chapter 100 plan. TIF plan's a TIF plan. These folks do this all the time. So I'm not sure how much transition they'd really Yeah, they'd have to look at the document the first time, but if they're going to advise in any other capacity on the project anyways, they're going to have to read the whole documents and understand the documents anyways. I guess another point that was brought up to me is I guess this contract doesn't have an expiration date, and perhaps the last one did. Can you explain why? And I have not pulled that up. Why there might be a difference in expiration date between Columbia Capital and this contract?
This one doesn't have an expiration date.
No. No, it doesn't. That was purpose, but you do notice you had the ability to terminate it at any time. And I know that's not the favorite way to do things, but, you know, if you're not sending business to somebody, I think they understand it, but I don't know how long some things may take.
Got it. Okay. Understood.
Okay? I would be throwing a dart at the wall trying to guess. Some things take longer than other things is all I can say.
Councilmember Saper.
I trust the staff to be as prudent and financially prudent as possible in this matter. Maybe it would help if we could get periodic updates from the council on how this is being used. That way we can verify.
You'll see it on accounts payable. Councilmember Snyder.
Or put an expiration on this and come back, and if we need to renew it, we can renew it at that time and discuss how it's being used. Otherwise, I think it's a larger burden to say, just come to us willy-nilly, and our expectations of what enough feedback is may not be their expectations of what enough feedback is. But if we put an expiration to this, and for some reason it's not a smooth, quick transition, or services are needed for an extended period of time, then we discuss it at the end of this contract.
Councilmember Saper.
I like that, and I see no reason why we couldn't do both in a smooth manner.
Councilmember Fitzgerald, I think I saw your hand moving there.
I think I'd also be in favor of this, as written, if we included a shorter expiration date of, I don't know, maybe 6 months, or I'm not entirely sure what would be reasonable, but, something that would resemble a transition time to the new advisor.
Given what we needed, I was thinking
I would
more
like to go into an executive session before action's taken on that, please.
Do we need a motion for that?
That is interesting. Okay. We will. Councilmember Snyder.
Would you feel better if we did a year? Because I think a year is reasonable. I mean, I think in a year we should discuss it no matter what.
I move that we
How
go
about
to
this?
executive session.
Thank you.
I guess, should I read the whole thing here? Should I read a consideration of request to hold in recess in executive session as requested by the mayor, the city council? Okay. Consideration, let me find litigation one so I can read it right. Consideration request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the city council to be held right now on a potential litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0211.
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say yeah. Or roll call, please. Thank you.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider? Yes. Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
Do we have a stay tuned slide for our YouTube folks? I guess we were prepared for Well, for everyone watching at home, we will be back, and we will discuss further business, and we will take more votes, and we'll be back shortly.
go back into regular session? Okay, so he'll have to do that now. So now, I'll need a motion, right, for them to go back into regular session.
Yes. Right. For the millions still watching online, we are back. Do we now have to take a vote to leave an executive session?
And come back into regular session.
I'm usually not around when you guys do, what?
They'll just need to make a motion to go out of executive session and come back
Someone
into
needs to make
regular session.
a motion to come back to regular. Exit executive, come back into regular.
I would like to exit executive session and relocate to the dais.
Wow. I don't know what she said, but I'll second the dais.
I think there's a second to that motion.
There was a second.
Is this now a roll call
concerned
again?
second.
I have to call roll.
This is now a roll call vote. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
All right, now to quickly update folks, we are on number 18 still with a motion by Councilmember Smith and a second by somebody. There we go, Councilmember Todd. I didn't actually write down.
It was on a first reading.
And that was on the first reading on this item. But it was still further council discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? No. Motion carries.
An ordinance adopting and approving an agreement for financial consulting services between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Matthew Webster.
I move that bill number 7834 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9631.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving an agreement for financial consulting services between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Matthew Webster.
Next item, please.
Number 19, approving accounts due and payable by the city through March 15th, 2024. Bill number 7836, ordinance number 9633.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? No. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 15th, 2024.
I move that bill number 7836 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9633.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald? Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember Todd?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through March 15th, 2024.
Item 20, staff comments. We're going to start with lead and copper inventory here. We're going to work in the inverse here. I just want to call on Anthony on
That works. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the EPA's lead and copper revised ruling for the country includes that all water systems create a lead and copper inventory, basically an inventory of our water service lines in the city that documents all connections. So there are 2,000 water service connections inside North Kansas City, and the city must verify basically 10% of the system, so that's 200 service lines. For this effort, we were currently also going to do a water master plan update for the city, which is currently ongoing. We decided to rope that all together, put that in as part of that master plan study. And so the consultant McClure is helping us go through also the lead and copper inventory. They've identified those 200 connections, the 10% we need to verify in some manner, either physically or through just like other site investigations, looking inside meter pits, going through old records and plans for basically verification of the material that they're made of. So through that, the 200, they've identified 125 based on year the parcel was incorporated. And if you look at the memo there attached, that's the sliding scale of color that kind of shows if it was 18,895 all the way up to 1965. Basically, different highlights of when lead was introduced into the system and when we passed ordinances to get it out of the system, and also when the nation started looking at more ordinances and laws regarding lead in water systems and when that could have been incorporated out. So basically just a compiling of different historical milestones. So there's 125 properties that have been identified for excavation. So that would include hydro-excavating going out to the curb, going into the street, going into maybe the front yard, hydro-excavating down and looking at what that material of that lead, or what that service line is, and then documenting it. If it's found to be lead, we've kind of taken the approach that we would replace what is owned by the city on site there. So we would actually then plan a replacement for that component. Per our current ordinances, the city owns service lines on residential properties between the water meter and the water main. After the water meter, it's then owned by the resident. And on commercial properties, the entire service line is actually owned, including the meter, by that property. So the current inventory looks at both residential and commercial properties. We'll be excavating and observing both kinds. But again, if we find the lead service line on the city side, we're going to kind of take the effort here to figure out how we would replace that.
So will you have some indication of whether or not the homeowner side of the line also has issues?
For right now, what we're doing is we're observing what we see in the meter pit. So inside the meter setup, the assembly for different residential connections, you can see the first part of the line that goes towards the house. We're also going to put some information on our website regarding how people can observe inside their own homes, inside crawl spaces, basements, what kind of pipes they see. There's a lot of good public information from the EPA and Department of Natural Resources that kind of shows how to do these kind of things. So we're going to kind of stand up a website as a portion of our website that does that. But as far as excavating on private property, that is currently not part of this portion of the project.
Is there, potentially, I guess, some thought or some way? I mean, if you're already digging, getting that far down, kind of struggle on why not. I understand it's private property, but if I recall, there's also some additional dollars that I thought were available from either the IRA or the IIJA related to specifically the homeowner side of the line.
So this component, this part of the lead and copper inventory, well, it is the inventory. So this first portion of this is identifying how much lead you might have in the system.
Yeah.
The second part, which the IIJA bill is more geared towards the replacement.
Yeah.
So as we go through this process, if we discover we have a lot of lead, then we'd be setting ourselves up for
replacement.
Replacement plans.
Okay.
And going after federal funds possibly.
Just once you dig down there and you already got the hole, it's going to be hard to put in for.
Well, the hole that we excavate ideally is not very large.
Fill it and do it
Probably
again.
under a diameter of a foot. It's hydro excavating, so if you
Okay,
imagine like
okay.
so if you imagine like a pressure washer
Boring,
cutting away at the
There we go. That
going
gives a little
down,
bit better
going down,
visual
yes.
than
Very small
than
little
most
hole.
holes you see in the ground. Yes.
Right. And again,
Okay.
Bo, if we identify it as lead, then we would have a bigger conversation. So hopefully we don't find a lot, but if we do, we would move on to different ideas for that.
Okay. Perfect. Was that it for your section here?
It is, yeah.
Okay, then Councilmember Smith and then Councilmember Alvarez.
On that, you mentioned looking down in the meter pit to identify whether the service line coming in was lead. Would it make sense for homeowners to maybe go take a look inside their meter pits to see if there's not copper coming off their meter on either side?
I would recommend they probably do not open their own meter pit.
Okay.
A lot of times the lids don't go back on right. They can
Fair enough.
Trip hazards, fall hazards, things like that.
Fair enough, yeah, okay. Good call.
Councilman Alvarez.
I think you might have already asked this, but so if you find on the homeowner side or the resident side that needs to be replaced, then that's up to that homeowner or whatever to replace that. If they choose not to, then how would that work with the part that you've replaced?
So we would be replacing the side from the meter pit back to the water main under the road. So that's currently in our ordinances, that is what's owned by the city. If we do identify something in the meter pit that makes us think that there could be lead on the homeowner side, we've talked about basically giving them a letter, letting them know, we want them to know what their water system's made of. But yes, the financial cost of them replacing that would be for them.
Councilmember Snyder.
We had also talked about using different funds basically for grants, right? That if you wanted to replace it on your side, that would be your responsibility, but you could apply for a grant to help cover that cost. Is that something we're still looking at?
I think there's a lot of different avenues that once we get past the inventory and understanding what we might have in the system, once we get into replacement, standing up different grants, standing up different federal funds that we go after.
So when we get to replacement, just forward thinking of some of the things that might come, we have a lot of properties that are rental where the homeowner themselves may not decide to do the cost, but the people that live there, it would be good for them to know. So any rules there are around disclosing that or how people are going to find out about what the knowledge that we have when we start looking would be important. And then, of course, how you can get the funding to replace it.
So one note to that too, the inventory will actually be made public. So that is part of the EPA requirements of actually doing the physical inventory,
Yeah,
so.
but the problem with that is, if you're, I mean, I know we've talked to people that are watching the meetings, but if you're not watching city council meetings or you're not checking in with the city, there's going to be a significant number of people that will have no idea that that information is available. So just making sure yep.
That could be something that we do on the water bills. You know, one of the things that we're working on is getting the letter size.
Yeah.
So I do think that there are some avenues that we could explore to help people understand that resource is going to be out there.
We just know with our work with water, it is expensive. So finding a way that everybody would be able to afford to do it, and then also taking care of people that may not be in the know because they're not the actual homeowners.
When do you intend to conclude this process, I guess?
So the inventory is due to DNR in October of 2024. I want to say October 16th. We've engaged one of our on-call water repair contractors to help us start the inventory, start the excavation process. We actually started the inventory process a while back, kind of looking at
You and I talked about
regular
it,
maintenance, going in and looking at the meter pits and things like that. But the actual excavations will start hopefully this week, if not the following.
And so based on what you know so far, do you believe we'll find a significant amount of lead? I know it's kind of an on-the-spot question, but
very hard to
based on
say.
historical records and everything that I know you have so far looked at.
You know, very hard to say. I guess I don't want to speculate, but from what we've observed so far, we haven't seen a lot of indication of. There's actually a lot of historical accounts, too, that the city back in the 60s went through a process similar to this and actually did some lead replacements. So this verification, doing the inventory, will actually, we'll see if we see an indication from that, too.
So hopefully we stay on that same path there. Councilmember Sedgwick.
We have a large number of old rental properties in North Kansas City, and not all of those people pay their own water bill. And I would hope there would be some way we could notify those residents of the results, not just the person who is paying the water bill or the agency or entity.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Perfect. Further questions on this item? If not, thank you. We'll talk about it more, I'm sure, at some point. What else we got? I saw budget calendar. What else?
Yeah, we included the budget calendar in there. I will point out right now we've got for the budget open session at the Parks and Rec, the Bounce and Balance last year. We've got it slated on 2 possible dates. One's a Saturday, one's a Tuesday. But we're kind of thinking Saturday might be better to get, people are out enjoying the park or walking. It's cooler if we do it in the morning. So it's something we're looking at, but wanted to point out it's not both dates, it's one or the other. But then otherwise, I believe Chief Freeman, Shu, have staff comments?
I have a short one. I have received a few requests on updating the enforcement regarding to the short-term rental regulations that we adopted last summer. So I would like to just give a brief update to the City Council that we have sent it out the first round of notice to property owners potentially in violation of this particular ordinance and requesting them to discontinue the use. We generally gave them a 30-day for responding or take some actions. So we have not yet passed that stage yet, so that's where we're at.
I mean, how many letters did you send out?
We have less than 10.
Okay. Further.
Because it's a developing list, so I couldn't give you the cutoff.
You have some more first ones probably coming out, but yes, Councilmember Smith.
So 30 days to respond, and then what's the timeline? What's the action?
So we have not so far received any action yet, as far as we know. We haven't received any response neither. So our next step is probably sending out another notice or contacting them by phone calls. And right now, it's just a formal letter at this point. There are some eligible ones that they just need to apply for and go through the process. There are some that's probably prohibited without a special use permit over there. We'll see how many we get. We haven't passed that time yet.
So assuming we don't hear back from a handful of them, what's the next step, though?
So that is just a code enforcement component. At this point, we ask them to discontinue the use. So if they still have the use in continuously matter, then this is a violation to the use of the land at this point. And then we'll probably go through the court process like what we typically would do. And yep, we'll have to notify them. Some of them might be a little trickier, just like how, for out-of-town property owners, usually it does take a little longer time to get a hold with them. And it is a little challenging for them to appear at the court in general. But this will just go down to our routine code enforcement process, like what we do for all the other rental properties.
We should have, through the landlord registration process, because every rental property should be registered with the city, we should know who those people are, right? Who and where they are?
Yep.
Okay, so it shouldn't be as difficult to find them and...
There are changes and overturns over their own management side, especially for those owned by LLCs, like the limited liability companies. So we typically do have a pretty good list with the contact of people who have registered with city as rental properties. There are some odds as well. Any other questions?
Oh, you're good, thank you. Chief Friedman.
Good evening. As you know, I was not present at the last city council meeting, which was the meeting that immediately followed the shooting that occurred at the North Kansas City High School. I wanted to take the opportunity to publicly recognize all the members of the North Kansas City Police and Fire Departments for their response to the shooting call on March 2nd. Included in this recognition should be the administration and the safety and security team from the North Kansas City High School, who have been outstanding partners in this case. We know that the response was immediate, with officers running towards the sound of gunfire to mitigate the chaos and render aid. We had department members respond from their homes, from their off-duty jobs, even before any formal requests for assistance were made. And as you know, the responses and assistance from our outside agency partners was outstanding. As an example of the chaos that would overwhelm any agency, but especially an agency of our size, in a 9-minute window, 89 calls came into our dispatch center. Of those calls, 77 of them came in on 911. 80% of those were within a 2-minute window. Along with the incoming telephone calls, outgoing calls were occurring asking for assistance, and over 173 radio transmissions. At that time, there were 2 communications officers on duty. They did an outstanding job. They really did. Our officers and investigators have worked their tails off over the past 2 weeks, sometimes putting in 14, 16-hour days, working side by side with the Clay County Prosecutor's Office, which has led to charges being filed against 4 of the 5 involved in the shooting. This all occurred while we were still conducting normal department operations. All of this is said for just me to tell you what a great department you have, and for me to publicly say thank you to the members of our agency for all the hard work they did. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good one to end on. There we go. Councilmember comments. Councilmember Saper. Oh, we have one more.
I just have one more. Tomorrow is the NKC Candidate Forum. It is in this room from 6 to 7 p.m. The North Kansas City High School debate team will be facilitating that. We are accepting questions. We'll also have cards here for people if they want to have questions presented by our forum students. We'll have those at the table so that if you have any questions, you can write them down. We won't be able to get to all of them. But I did want to invite everybody to that particular event. We will be broadcasting it as well.
Thank you. Good. All right. Councilmember Saper.
To those celebrating Ramadan, Ramadan Mubarak. And for those celebrating Nowruz, and I hope I get this right, Aditun Mubarak. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Snyder.
Ward 2 actually is the only race where we have 2 people running. So if you're in Ward 2, you might want to come tomorrow night. Our calendar has an error, so I'm just going to throw that out there for anyone who uses the city calendar. It has Easter in April, and it's actually at the end of March. So when I saw that, I was like, am I wrong? And I had to look it up. No, it's printed wrong, so don't let that throw you. I would like to talk about, at some future meeting, maybe creating an ordinance that deals with meetings that fall on voting day. So we kind of left that open so we could schedule it as is, but we've always done it on Wednesdays. So Mondays are municipal court. It's always fallen on Wednesdays. So can we just make that a thing so it's in the calendar and we don't have to guess about it?
Wait, we should decide that tonight too, right? Oh, we already did that.
I'm just saying, can we make that an official thing that we can change if necessary, so we don't have to approve it every time it happens, and everyone can schedule that?
We're calendar setting for the whole year.
We can bring back an amending ordinance for council.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Consideration.
That would be awesome. And then I want to thank Chief Freeman for your words, and we all very much appreciate the efforts and work that went into that, and it was with the police department and the dispatchers. Thank you for recognizing their work, and the school district and everyone. I appreciate your words. And there was one more. Nope, I think that's it.
Man, this reminds me of the Cinco de Mayo incident. She knew someone was going to bring it up. Councilmember Smith. On the wrong day.
Yeah. First thing, we brought a clicker in for the first time. Thank you for setting that up, so our presenters were able to click through the slides without having to point to Anthony or Shu and ask for the next slide. That was wonderful. Thank you for following that feedback. We had a big hailstorm last week, and going outside, other than some busted up fences and roofs, you never know it. So either limbs didn't fall or your team was out there so fast that, goodness, well done. Snake Saturday, again, the weather was perfect, big crowd, good to see people back out and having a good time on Snake Saturday. And with all those happy things, I'm going to circle back because after events happen, people can kind of lose the fire on certain issues. We're 17 days past the shooting that happened at our high school. As Chief Freeman mentioned, a lot of our law enforcement and our surrounding jurisdictions have been involved. A lot of numbers put together, but some numbers that stood out to me this week: 50 shots fired with caliber up to 45, which is crazy, in a residential area in a crowd at a school. 5 shooters, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they had the guns inside the school before coming outside and firing shots. Okay. I believe that was in the prosecutor's public comment, so I won't put you on the spot. So that's insane. I don't like to use the word fortunate. We're very fortunate that with that many shots fired in such a tight range that nobody died. So given that and the mass shooting at the Chief celebration and the shooting at Union Station and the death of the policeman and process server, you'd figure the Missouri legislature has been very busy. And they have. They've been very busy the past few weeks, but not with gun reform. They've been working on a rushed initiative to circumvent a constitutional amendment procedure and make it more difficult to amend the Constitution than a simple majority vote that's been in place for over 100 years by requiring 6 of 8 congressional districts to vote, and with the Women's Reproductive Rights Amendment on the horizon. Let's call it what it is. Additionally, they have been trying to make criminals out of teachers and support staff at schools who try to help students who are figuring out gender identity. They're trying to make them sex criminals. Instead of talking about gun reform, anything but gun reform. Some lawmakers have been discussing an amendment to the Constitution that would roll back the preemption laws that allow cities to create stronger gun laws. That would allow cities some latitude to protect ourselves. Governor Parsons has been in office for 6 years now, shortly following the tenure of Eric Greitens. And those years, those consistent terms have been marked with some of the loosest gun laws and loosening gun laws in the state, including the Second Amendment Protection Act, which was again deemed unconstitutional. We have the 4th, again, repeating from last time, the fourth loosest gun laws and the fourth highest gun-related deaths in the country. Taking a tighter view, Kansas City, Missouri, during their tenure, the 6 to 8 year tenure, depending on how you want to look at it, homicides have increased from 109 per year to 185 per year. This is a city-type problem, and preemption laws are very important. So if you're not familiar with the term, preemption laws are laws that prevent any county, city, or municipality from passing legislation regulating the sale, purchase, transfer, ownership, use, possession, transportation, licensing, permitting, and registration of firearms. Essentially, anything to do with guns, we have no say in the cities. It all is solely at the hands of the Missouri legislature, who refuse to do anything with it. Since I made a speech last time, I've been called or texted or commented, emailed with arguments against what I had to say, pushing for some common sense gun regulation. First one, murder is already illegal. That doesn't stop people. So why pass any laws at all? If people are going to break them, why pass them at all? The other one is don't disarm the responsible gun owners. Only criminals would then have the guns. Let me be clear. I'm not trying to take guns away from responsible gun owners. That's not the intent here. What I want to do is put extra steps between a would-be criminal and their weapon of choice. Laws affect not only the would-be criminals, but also how the industry operates and how the retailers operate. So, if the Missouri legislature won't even consider any of these changes, please, I'm begging you, get rid of the preemption laws so we can do it ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Thank you again to everyone on city staff involved with the audit. I've been on the other side of that, so I'm sure you're getting tons of extra questions and requests for files and whatnot. So just thanks for that. And I can't say it better than Chief Freeman, but thank you to everybody in the police and fire and EMS and dispatch for the rapid response.
Thank you. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, I just want to iterate too, the police department and fire department, quick response there, and just ask Chief Freeman if you'd like to recognize the two dispatchers, maybe by name, that were working that evening. So,
Sure, put me on the spot.
yeah.
Jennifer James and Chelsea. And I don't know Chelsea's last name. She's new to the organization, so I apologize, Chelsea, if you're watching.
You might want to check that out, so, for next week. Just saying. But yeah, I imagine they.
But I didn't call her Ham.
Oh, well, I imagine they did a great job. That sounds like a lot of calls, and so hats off to them.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Chief Freeman, for not recognizing women that did a great job in Women's History Month. Perfectly timed, buddy. Let's see. I just had to put that in there. Thank you, Jessica and Chelsea. Thank you to Lance for, what? Jenny. Here we go, Women's History Month. Thank you. It's really hard when it's not announced properly. So sorry. Thank you again, Chief Freeman. So thanks, Lance, for River Forest Park update and the Parks Board for your attendance tonight. Levy Trail, hope we can keep the efforts towards accommodating multimodal forms of transportation around the city. Big thank you to Municipal Services team on the construction of the Equity and Inclusion Committee's float that served for Snake Saturday, which was also designed by our very own Megan Summers. I'm sure she's watching from home. Thank you to Councilmembers Schneider and Fitzgerald for your involvement in the financial advisory services selection. Of course, city staff for that audit, painful. And thank you for the points you're making, Jesse. And it's not lost on me that guns have more rights than women. Thanks.
Here we go. Councilmember Stokes.
Parks and Recs always has great things going on. They have Bonanza coming up. They also have baseball and summer camp signups, lots of other things if you want to check it out. Thank you to Chief Freeman for those astounding numbers, and I like those information. I just wanted to maybe put back on the radar of the staff we talked about getting some information out for the River Forest erosion project. I just wanted to follow up on that. And then I just also, I don't know if she'll stay all the way till council comments on her last meeting, but I just wanted to thank Councilwoman Schneider for her service and all that she's done and for how she taught me as I've been on council. And with that, I conclude my comments.
I believe, I don't want to cut her off too early here. I believe she has one more full meeting and then a partial meeting. Yes. Council, well, yeah, because the meeting will be moved to the night after the election, I believe is what we did, correct? Yes. And so then you still have to certify the results. There's a process there in the middle. So you get that full, and then you get the part of the next one. So it should be part of the certifying crew, and then the new crew will all come in. Councilmember Todd.
Wow. Okay, I first want to say Snake Saturday was so great. Also, I went to the Grand Marshal Hooley for the first time. That was a hoot, for sure. I enjoyed that, enjoyed Snake Saturday, beautiful weather. Thanks for all of the hard work that went into that. Chief Freeman, thank you so much for your comments there. And I have to say, I feel so much safer in this city and in this community with you and your team. And I feel like our city is just so well supported, and it does help bring a sense of security. So thank you so much. And then to Jesse's comments as well, I do think it is so easy to continue to move on. And I do want to also bring back that last meeting we talked about having trying to come up with some sort of formal resolution. I don't even know if that's the right word, but I still would be completely on board with being any part of that process to, even if it's something small, just being able to do something would feel good.
I didn't have the time to get back, but we will find it here, and we'll get that on very shortly. Good? Thank you. Oh, you've already gone. You were the first. Snake Saturday, it's a great day, great weather. Always have to thank our public safety crews. I got a lot of compliments. People just feel good being down in North Kansas City, and they love seeing you all and out and about and with the crowd, and appreciate your efforts to make sure everyone stays safe. Municipal Services does a great job of setting it up, not only pre-parade, but after parade. They're out there cleaning everything up, moving everything, getting everything back to the way it was before, and so your crew does a fantastic job of that. Further, again, thank public safety again. High school incident, especially our police department. You don't get to the charges that the prosecutor's office got to without the tireless investigations of our police department. So I appreciate all those long hours they put in. Yeah, I think that's all my, and our dispatchers, communication staff over there. They often go unnoticed, but play a pivotal role in all these things that happen in our community and keeping us safe. So thank you to them as well. With that, we got a lot of reading here. You want me to read them?
No.
No, she said I go too fast, but I'll do it anyways. 23, consideration request to hold in recess when an executive session is requested by the city council or to be held on the state on a potential litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0211.
So moved.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember
Yes.
Safer. Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith. Councilmember
Yes.
Fitzgerald. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Stokes. Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
24, consideration request to hold in recess when an executive session is requested by the city council or to be held on the state on a potential litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute
So moved.
610-0211.
Second.
So moved.
Now there's a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Safer.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider. Councilmember
Yes.
Smith. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yes.
Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
Number 25, consideration request to hold in recess when an executive session is requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0212.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, crush, you messed me up. Councilmember Safer.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith. Councilmember
Yes.
Fitzgerald. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Stokes. Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
Oh, you killed my flow. 26, consideration request to hold in recess when an executive session is requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0212.
So moved.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider.
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith. Councilmember
Yes.
Fitzgerald. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Todd.
Yes.
Consideration, number 27, consideration request to hold and recess when executive session is requested by the mayor to be held on this date on a personnel matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-021.
So moved.
3.
Second.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Smith? Councilmember
Yes.
Fitzgerald? Councilmember Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes?
Yes.
Councilmember
Yes.
Todd?
All right. This time, the live feed will be cutting off into much, I'm guessing everyone's disappointment. There'll be no further public business or votes taken this evening. Thank you. I like that ending. That's a good.